Imagine standing in the middle of a place so bright that it almost feels like daytime, even at night. Huge billboards flash with lights, music pours from every corner, and people from all over the world crowd the sidewalks. Street performers sing, dance, or pose for photos, while taxis honk as they weave through traffic. This is Times Square in New York City, one of the most famous places in the world. But Times Square wasn't always filled with lights and excitement. It has a long and fascinating history. In the late 1800s, Times Square didn't even exist by that name. The area was called Longacre Square, and it was far less glamorous. Instead of glowing billboards, the streets were lined with carriage factories, horse stables, and small businesses. It was considered a busy but not very fancy part of Manhattan. That began to change in 1904 when the New York Times newspaper built a brand new skyscraper right in the square. The Times Tower became one of the tallest buildings in the city. To celebrate, the area was renamed Times Square after the newspaper. That same year, Times Square hosted its very first New Year's Eve celebration. The Times newspaper organized a huge party to welcome the new year with fireworks and crowds of people. The tradition quickly grew. By 1907, fireworks were replaced with the first New Year's Eve ball drop, when a glowing ball was lowered from the top of the Times Tower to mark midnight. This event became one of the most famous traditions in the world, and today millions of people watch it both in person and on television. As New York grew in the early 1900s, so did Times Square. The area quickly became a center of entertainment. Theaters, restaurants, and music halls opened up, and Broadway shows brought crowds of visitors. By the 1920s and 1930s, Times Square was alive with theaters and movie palaces showing the newest films. Neon lights and giant signs made the area glow, giving Times Square its nickname, the crossroads of the world. But Times Square also had its struggles. During the Great Depression in the 1930s, many businesses closed, and the area became known for crime and poverty. Even after World War II, Times Square went through difficult years. By the 1960s and 1970s, it had become run down. The bright lights still shone, but many theaters were abandoned, and crime made it a less safe place to visit. People began to think of Times Square as a place to avoid rather than enjoy. Everything changed in the 1980s and 1990s when New York City leaders decided to clean up and restore Times Square. Old theaters were renovated, new businesses moved in, and police worked to make the area safe again. Major companies like Disney and MTV opened stores and studios there, bringing families and tourists back. Bright digital billboards began replacing neon signs, and Times Square became even more dazzling at night. Today, Times Square is one of the busiest tourist attractions in the world. Nearly 400,000 people walk through it every single day. The area is filled with theaters, shops, restaurants, and street performers. Famous shows like The Lion King and Hamilton draw audiences to Broadway theaters just steps away. Giant electronic billboards line the buildings, flashing ads so bright that they can be seen from airplanes flying overhead. Times Square is also home to major celebrations. The biggest, of course, is the New Year's Eve ball drop, when crowds pack the square to count down the last seconds of the year. But it also hosts parades, concerts, and special events throughout the year. It has become a symbol of New York's energy and excitement, appearing in movies, TV shows, and photographs around the world. Even with all its changes, Times Square still holds on to its history. The old Times Tower still stands at the center, though it is now covered in billboards instead of newspapers. The mix of history and modern life makes it unique, a place where people can see the past and future of New York all in one spot. From a quiet square of stables to the glittering heart of a global city, Times Square has transformed many times over the last century. It shows how a place can rise, fall, and rise again, always reinventing itself. Today it represents more than just New York. It represents creativity, resilience, and the ability to bring people together.